Hello everybody, it's Nia from Peatland & Partners, a senior solicitor in the commercial team. As unsurprisingly, we're getting quite a lot of questions now as people are looking towards the horizon of coming out of lockdown, maybe a bit slower in Wales, but nonetheless we're all looking towards the same horizon, and we're getting some questions coming in from businesses. One of the first being, can I reopen? Well, the issue we have when we look at that from the legal point of view, the actual businesses that are required legally to be closed are relatively limited, and this has been the case all along. The PR maybe of being open is perhaps a different thing to consider, but from a legal point of view, the list is relatively limited to the hospitality industry. So the first question is, we need to look at those regulations and determine whether you are in the business category that has to remain shut. If you find you are not, and you are now looking at reopening, you need to make yourself COVID secure. So that will mean that you need to have a risk assessment. If you've got 5 or more staff, this will need to be in writing, but actually it's not a bad plan for anyone to put in place how are they actually going to manage within the confines of COVID requirements. So this may then involve looking at things such as selling online, click and collect. These are all really good ways of maybe reopening within the COVID parameters. In doing that, which is a positive thing, it's likely that the working practices and the legal practices, such as your terms and conditions, the way you interact with your suppliers and your customers, will have changed. So you really need to have a look at that. So while you're planning to reopen, you've done your risk assessment, we then need to make sure that things like your terms and conditions with your customers reflect that. Selling online is different to selling to person in person, and that's something that just needs to be looked at. When it comes to reopening and looking then at your employees over a longer time horizon, good news from the Chancellor today in relation to furloughing, but at the same time we still need to be looking towards the future. Again, that should be part of your plan. So if you've got a business plan in place, that can really feed into your employee plan who's coming back from furlough. If you are going to be making redundancies, unfortunately, then the business plan will support your decision making in that and will really help you keep an objective look at that and support that being a reasonable redundancy if the worst comes to the worst. We're also having quite a lot of questions about people who just want to fundamentally change their business. It might be that the two directors no longer agree in terms of where the future is, or it may be that certain shareholders say, actually, I want out of this business sector, or I want in. Some sectors are doing extremely well. Where that is the case, we need to really be looking at things such as your shareholders agreements, your partnership agreements, and really making sure that it is clearly set out. There's likely to be a large period of flux in every business over the coming months and years, and any failure to have those sorts of documents in place, if they're not already in place, could be quite costly as people's expectations change. So again, there's two elements to this. There's the how we reopen and start engaging again with our customers, and we really need to be looking at the terms and conditions you've got in place for that and the employment aspect of that, but also internally within your business. What's your management structure? Is somebody who maybe was looking at retiring a year or two's time gone, I think this is enough for me, thank you, and they're looking at now retiring? What does your shareholders agreement say about that? Do you even have a shareholders agreement? So now's the time to really be refocusing on that and making yourself future proof. There's no doubt that many businesses will come out of this process a lot stronger, and some unfortunately will not. And in that case, we need to make sure that things such as the shareholders agreements, the documentation for your director service contracts, that they're all in place. And if there is going to be a split, or there's going to be a sale maybe of the business, or you might wind the business up, that process needs to be completed correctly. There are strict rules associated with that, and simply saying, well, I was doing it under COVID will not suffice. So anybody who's looking at maybe winding their business up, even if it's completely solvent at the moment, they just don't really want to reopen, and we can see that potentially coming about in some sectors, that needs to be done correctly, and it needs to be done in a way that protects those individuals, those directors and shareholders, for their future endeavours. A classic example of that being where maybe a director is given a personal guarantee on the business account overdraft, they've left the business, but that personal guarantee still stays. It doesn't automatically go just because they've left as a director. So those are the sorts of things that we really just want to iron out to make sure that whatever your future decisions are, whatever your future plans are, that they're proofed and that they're not going to be impacted upon by the decisions you've made in the last month or in the coming months. So this is a real opportunity now for businesses to sit down, look at their horizons, identify any gaps that they have in terms of their management team, their employees, their customers, and any problems that they've had. Could they have avoided them? What lessons can we actually now learn from the last 6 weeks and put them in place before we reopen fully? So anybody who's looking at reopening as they were, or as a completely different guise, or with different strands to their business, now's a really good time to write that business plan, get in touch, and we can just make sure that your endeavours going forwards are justly rewarded. So any problems, do get in touch with us, and hopefully see you open very soon.